Every day I go on, but life's just not the same. I'm so empty inside, and my tears I can't hide. But I'll try to face the pain, though I'm missing you. I'll find a way to get through. Living without you, 'cause you were my sister, my strength, and my ground. Only God may know.
You are under a misconception.
I'm always ready for a war again. Go down that road again. It's all the same. I'm always ready to take a life again. You know I'll ride again. It's all the same. Tell me who's gonna save me from myself when this life is all I know. Tell me who's gonna save me from this hell. Without you, I'm alone. Who gon' pray for me? Take my pain for me. Save my soul for me. 'Cause I'm alone to see. If I'm gon' die for you, if I'm gon' kill for you, then I spill this blood for you. Hey.
I fight the world, I fight you, I fight myself, I fight God, just tell me how many burdens left. I fight pain and hurricanes, today I wept. I'm trying to fight back tears, flood on my doorsteps. Life and living hell, puddles of blood in the street, shooters on top of the building, government aid ain't relief. Earthquake, the body drop, the ground breaks, the poor run with smoke lungs and scarred face. Who need a hero? You need a hero, look in the mirror, there go your hero. Who on the front lines at ground zero? My heart don't skip a beat even when hard times bumps the needle. Mass destruction and mass corruption, the souls of suffering men clutching on deaf ears again. Rapture is coming, it's all prophecy. And if I gotta be sacrificed for the greater good, then that's what it
Who
gotta
gon'
be.
pray for me? Take my pain for me. Save my soul for me. 'Cause I'm alone to see. If I'm gon' die for you, if I'm gon' kill for you, then I spill this blood for you. Hey, hey, hey. Hey, hey. Who gon' pray for me? Take my pain for me. Save my soul for me. 'Cause I'm alone to see. If I'm gon' die for you, if I'm gon' kill for you, then I spill this blood for you. Hey. Just in case my fate come, I live by my own law. I live by my own law. I live by my own. Just in case my fate come, I live by my own law. I live by my own law. I live by my own.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
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 Okay, about 21 people. We're missing a few people. I'm just start sending reminders before class, just in case people forget. But good morning to our Tuesday meeting. Again, we only meet on Tuesdays. We do not meet on Thursdays. Thursday, I ask you to go on your own and watch your own film of choice. This week we're doing our favorite films. Just to go over what we went over last week, if you just joined us, our course is fully in Blackboard, it's fully virtual. If you go to Blackboard, you'll see 4 main areas. That is the virtual office hours, which office hours take place on Thursday. You'll see home, which kind of gives you an overview of the course and simply has a Zoom link. And then you'll see the course content, which has all the course information, the syllabus, the readings, the My Framework assignment, and your film critiques and social media post folders. So you'll see all those open on Blackboard for you, and they'll be updated weekly as we move on and graded weekly as well. To check your grades under home, you'll see a My Grade box. If you click on that, you'll see if your grades are submitted, graded, or in progress. And also you go to calendar, which is the due dates for assignments as well. So I want to welcome you all to week 2 of our course so far. I wanted to open up with some news if you haven't heard. Chadwick Boseman has passed this weekend from colon cancer, and we'll talk more about him with today's topic as we move on. But if you have not already, I want you to go to Blackboard and complete the attendance check-in. So if you go to Blackboard, I'm gonna switch my screen real quick. So if you go to Blackboard, again, I say go to the course. You will click on attendance check-in. And for this week, September 1st, yes, it should be open. So I want you to drop your topics in here. Someone already posted that. Hannah, thank you. Chadwick Boseman has passed for his 4-year battle with cancer. Please drop in more in the news topics or share them out loud. Something that's happening in the world that we should know. So you can unmute yourself or type in the chat in the news, something in the news we should know. Okay, I'm gonna start calling on people. If people don't start sharing. So what's going on in the news since last we met? Victoria, are you there, Victoria? Jane?
Yeah, hello. My mic is having really bad feedback. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Just let me know something that's going on in the news that we should know. You can type in the chat or post on a thread. We're doing attendance now. Something we should know going on in the news. Okay, James, do you have something to share? Gregory, Maya, what's going on in the news since last we met? Niece Nash just did get married. She did get married. I didn't know she's in a same-sex relationship. That she also came out as well and got married at the same time. So that was on news. What else news that we should know?
Okay. Well, oh, hi. Good morning, by the way. This is Myra. Oh, let me. Hi. I was typing my news article, but in Chicago, just kind of sad, but it was 55 shot and 10 fatally in citywide gun violence this past weekend.
I'm so sorry to hear that. On that same sad note, 39 children were rescued. Well, this happened to be rescued. They were involved in a sex trafficking ring, right? Children, which is very sad. So someone posted that on Blackboard. Mr. Rant, sorry. Whoopi Goldberg urges Disney to build a Wakanda theme park. Wow. Keke Palmer is the first Black woman to host the VMAs. I think she's the first woman hosted in like 30 years. Someone else did it who was a Black woman in the 1980s, I heard. But that was definitely news this weekend. A man was shot and killed in South LA Monday afternoon. I think I've heard that as well. I think they said he thought he had a knife or a gun, but he didn't. Anything else in the news we should know? Zoom stock, okay. Just affected often. Plea deal. They falsely agreed that Breonna Taylor was. Oh wow, Taylor. That's interesting. Fresh Prince of New comes to HBO Max. Michael B. Jordan honors Chadwick. There's a petition. I'm not sure what the petition is. They have decided to name the Fine Arts Building after Chadwick Boseman. Yes, that has been started. I do believe that there's a part of the building that's named after Lula Childers. So I'm not sure that's going to be the same place, but it's a part of it's already dedicated to a Black woman. So I'm not sure about taking her name down, putting his name up, but I know there's definitely a petition going around in that context. So please drop in your attendance. You're in the news topics for credit. There's 20 people in this group, only 9 of you done attendance, and it closes on Friday. So after Friday it closes, and you do not get attendance credit. Some other things in news. Trump reportedly is willing to sign second stimulus agreement. Okay, Dwayne, we're waiting that check. Man shot and killed someone. Is that already? Let's see what you have here. 55 shots, 10 states in Chicago. Yes, talked about that already. That's very unfortunate. Okay. Trump plans to visit Kenosha. Yes, I did. And defends Rittenhouse. Yes, so Rittenhouse is the young 17-year-old boy who shot 2 protesters. Trump was on record defending him, which has put shock in people's hearts once again from Trump. So a lot going on in the world. Let's continue to stay up to date. It is a new month, February. Happy new month. And we hope things will get better as we approach the elections, as we approach what's going on with coronavirus. I did hear that there is on the market right now, a test that gives you results in 15 minutes. So they're still testing that to make sure that can be approved and sold and shared widespread. But so they're in the works of doing that. And the first, the coronavirus trials, right? There is a Black woman who's at the center of that trial, and so far, she's gotten her second dose. So they're saying now that if the vaccine comes out, it'll be in 2 doses, which people are really concerned about because it puts the responsibility on the person who got the first dose to come back again in a timely fashion to get it again. If you don't, they have to take it all over again. So the 2-dose vaccine is something that's at the head of solutions right now, but people are wary about people getting it twice, people remembering to come back, creating this vaccine in 2 vials, creating double the amount you need instead of just having 1. And then conspiracy theorists are saying this is all just about money, right? There's a simpler way of dealing with this, but America's making it very complicated just to get money. So let's move on. So generally in beginner class, about the first 5 minutes, if you come in late, we're doing attendance. And that is through discussing what's going on in the world. So the first 10 minutes, you shouldn't miss much. But after that, please remember to go back and complete your form. So let's jump back to our presentation for today. So today's conversation centers around Black directors or directors in general. And I wanted to start off with the information about Chadwick Boseman and his passing. I want to give people space to say anything. They don't want to say anything about his sudden passing. Is anyone in this group from fine arts or interested in film, working in film, I should say? Okay, raise your hand if you're in the school.
I'm in fine arts, but I would like to say something.
Okay.
It was just really like so unexpected to me, and also I was it made me glad that I went to the I got to go to the Bridges premiere that he had, because when he was here at Howard, he premiered the movie and stuff, but he was also like giving like really good tips and stuff and advice for just like Black people in film and stuff, and I'm glad I recorded it. So like now I have it on my phone, I can look back and watch it.
Okay. All right. We have 2 people who are in film theater majors. No music. Do you want to say anything? Oh, my conjoined is not working. Victoria, do you want to say anything? Just have to kind of circle around him. Okay, thanks, James. So it's sudden, very unfortunate to know that he was battling with cancer for 4 years. And in 4 years, he created a couple of projects and he was never public about his struggle with cancer. So there were moments where he had pictures where he looked like he was losing weight, people making fun of him, but now we know that he was dealing with chemo, right? He never made excuses for the work he had to do, the work he wanted to do, right? As an actor, as a trained actor, as a Howard alum, as a Black man, as a Black son. He never made excuse the fact that he was struggling with cancer, and unfortunately, he passed. And in conversation with who he is and what he means to, let's say, Howard, Black Hollywood, I want to focus on these two things and talk about this last week. Netflix has this strong Black lead conversation they're pushing in media, and it definitely is a sad day for Black Hollywood. But I want to talk about two things that Bozeman kind of points to a lot is purpose and understanding. Purpose and understanding. And in connection with that, we'll talk about Dr. Carr's text, which I didn't say you had to read, but I'll kind of frame it within the conversation as far as what does this course look like in our department. So it's a film course, but we're not in communications, we're not in fine arts. We're talking about film within Africana studies, right? So what is the goal in which this course is aiming towards? And then we'll shift to the concept as far as directors, right? What does it mean to have someone who sits at the seat of a film? Who is a director? What does a director mean or do to a film? Victorious is very sad. I'm very inspired about how much he achieved and contributed to the industry. Taylor, the impact he has on little Black kids of the world is just crazy. So we'll talk about that as well too, right? In connection to what Africana study is. So if you're not an Afro Studies major, in fact, raise your hand if you're Afro Studies major. Raise your hand. Any Afro majors in here? Or minors? You raise your hand. Afro majors, minors. Okay, one person raised their hand. 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's good. So what is Africana Studies? Why is my, okay. What is Africana Studies? Africana Studies is a study of African people, place, which always say geography and culture. This comes from Dr. Carr's text, Teaching the Africana Experience. So when we say Africana Studies, we're talking about the people of African descent, Haitian descent, Ghanaians, Nigerians. If you're from down south, you're from NOLA, you're considered the people we study. So you can study people within Africana Studies, right? You can also study places, right? Study the continent. You can study Egypt. You can study NOLA as a Black space. You can study Howard as a Black space, right? You can study geographies across the globe, Brazil as a place that can be studied within Africana Studies. And then we get to what we fall in, film, which is culture. Culture is what we produce, right? Our language, our art, our writing, our music, our dance, that's all a part of culture, right? And that can also be studied, right? So within our field, in our department, we focused on the study of African people, place, and culture. And film falls under culture. And what we're studying is how do we create, produce this culture, which is at the foundation, we believe beneficial to the people, right? When we look at hip hop's part of the culture, but it's kind of moved outside the culture to the mainstream, right? So many people study how has hip hop changed over time. That's a question of the culture, which it was created in, changing, right? How has Black film changed over time? That's a question of culture. What are the elements of it? The actors, the writing, the directing, the technology around it, right? So film falls under the category of culture when we're looking at the study of it from an African perspective. In that same article, Dr. Carr also talks about questions we must think of, right? When examining, let's say, culture specifically. You say, 1, always think about who is being studied. So when we're looking at a film, think about what the film is talking about and who is in that film, right? We're talking about a film about Chicago, who is in that film? Who's being studied in that film? You talk about Wakanda or Black Panther, who are they talking about, right, in that film, right? Then the second question, where they come from? And this is what kind of makes authentic or deep-seated Black films or rich Black films stand out from general Black films, right? So the question of, it's a love story, right, between two Black people. Where do they come from and how they get here, right? And now that's context, and that takes research. And many films that fall short lack context and depth. They don't ask the question, where they come from and how they get here. The next thing, how do people view themselves and their origins, right? In the film, do people see themselves as Black or not? Do they see themselves as Nigerian or Igbo, right? Haitian or Creole? Do they see themselves as just African American or just American? These are questions that a researcher asks. How do they see themselves? Next, how do people organize and govern themselves in their thoughts around common goals? And we'll look at them. We look at it, Black Panther, right? What are the common goals in the film? How do they make decisions, resolve disputes, recognize authority, interact with others, establish common tastes and styles? Then next, how do people use the materials and tools around them to shape their physical environment, right? How do we use technology? That's technology. How do people remember what they have done, and how do they pass these memories for future generations? And here's where we talk about film a lot. Film is us remembering certain things and allowing it to be passed on for future generations, right? So we create a film like Black Panther for us to go back and watch later and think about, right? Envision a Wakanda, right? That's the purpose of that film. And then what have people created to express their thoughts and emotions to themselves and others? So how does it make us feel? After the film is created, how does it make us feel? Does it move us forward? What emotions does it provoke, right? And that's kind of at the seat of the questions we'll use to examine all the films in all the genres, right? So when we get to a film like Us, right, what does it help us remember? We get to a film like Django Unchained, what ways do people come to common goals, right? What does it say about Black people? Where do Black people from? Is that context given, right? So we use these guiding questions to examine all the films we look at, and this comes from Dr. Greg Carr's Teaching the Africana Experience, who's the chair of the Department of Africana Studies here at Howard University. So for this week, the guiding question becomes, what is Black film? What elements make a Black film? So I want to hear answers on that. And the reading for today was Teray's article on directors. But what is a Black film? What constitutes a Black film? And you can either type in the chat or talk. What constitutes a Black film? Does it just have Black actors? If you have Black actors, does it automatically make that film a Black film? Yes, no, maybe so.
I would say not just having Black actors, but sometimes conveying like a feeling of Blackness as a culture, or describing something that has an element rooted.
Okay. So not just Black people. Someone says it tells a story of the Black experience, a film that portrays some element of Black culture, a film that expresses the experiences of Black people, a film that centers on the Black experience and perspective. That's a Black film. Anyone else? What constitutes a Black film, and what elements? So we have the experience, the people, the culture. Someone says the perspective, which is great language. What else? Does a director have to be Black for it to be a Black film?
I would say no, the director doesn't have to be Black, because I think it was it The Help or The Color Purple?
Both.
Yeah, so and like they're both Black films, and you can tell because they're based on from the perspective and the experiences of Black people, but they're not directed by Black people, but you still can feel like the experience.
Good point. So Color Purple, talk about that, is directed by Steven Spielberg. And The Help, I can't remember the woman's name, but it's also directed by a white woman, I'm sorry. And I believe the book text is written by a white woman as well. But we see black cast or black leads, I should say, right? So someone says it's not just, you can have a black film and still have a white director that constitutes as a black film. Anyone else? What are the elements of a black film? You got people, culture, maybe director, black perspective. A film makes a black audience feel seen, okay? The audience also a part of that, an intended audience, okay? So can we have a film that has all white people, but the white people are talking about black experiences, or their feelings about black people? Is that a black film? Because at the center of that film is black people. Like, let's say there was a film about the KKK meeting. You're talking about black people? No.
I would say no, because what somebody said about perspective, like it has to be from the perspective of a black person for it to be a black film. So if it's just like white people or other non-black people talking about the black experience, and it's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So Jordan brought the question, does The Help count? Does The Help count as a black film? That's what we're talking about now. Does it count? Because it's directed by, it's a white perspective on black people's life during this time, right? And someone says it doesn't count, right? And I would say it doesn't count for me. So again, this course helps us to critically analyze black film for ourselves. We are not the Oscars or BET Movie Awards or MTV Movie Awards, but I want us to understand for ourselves, what do we mean when we create these categories of labels of black films, black actors, and what are the elements, right? So just so we're clear, right, I'm gonna go back and then come forward. I constitute the origins of black film from as far back as these stone images, right? So film, as we know, as motion picture. So picture in motion is a contemporary idea of what film is. But the idea of you drawing a picture and you giving that picture either meaning or context is kind of also like a film too, right? We see animation, part of the film industry. We see flip books, which is also an animation part of the film industry. But everything starts with a picture. Then when that picture starts moving, then it becomes the idea of a film, a moving image, right? But African people have been creating films or pictures with stories that at one point weren't moving, but they begin to move over time for a long period of time historically, right? So that idea of the history of black people in film goes way back, right? If I draw two pictures and one scene is just these cows, then the next scene, these cows and these people, guess what? I made a film. I got two scenes, I gave it context. You know, there's no sound, you know, there's no silent films, right? But I will constitute this as the early forms of black people writing down things to remember, right? You may be remembering something that happened in the past, maybe trying to remember something that's happening now, right? Or you may be projecting a future, right? And who sits at the seat of this conversation is a director, right? And a director controls a film's aesthetic and dramatic aspects and visualizes the screenplay, the script, right? So the director is hired to put all these things together, the dramatic part, what you see and what's written down for that film, while guiding the technical crew, right? All those who are capturing the shots, picking out the actors and how they should embody the piece, picking the cast, production, design, and creating this overall team for this film, right? So a director is very important. A director is someone who puts everyone together to allow this story, narrative, reenactment to come to life, right? And to go back to Ray's argument, he said, what is a black film? What elements make a black film? And he said, this is somewhat impossible to answer, right? Particularly in America, because we are a minority. And when it comes to spaces, right, things that we may not have control of, we can't say it can or cannot be a film, right? But for him, he kind of goes through these examples of Selma, which is Ava DuVernay, 12 Years a Slave, which is Stephen McQueen, Do the Right Thing, which are black films that people don't argue with, because you have black directors, black actors, and the Black experience that is central, right? But then other projects that are not as clear. Again, The Color Purple, white director, Steven Spielberg, a Black woman's story, Alice Walker, and we see Black actors, right? So the script is written by a Black woman, is being acted by Black people, but the director who's sitting at the seat of the film, putting everything together, who's allowing you to see, who's deciding what the camera looks at, is a white person, right? And he argues that itself, that element that's missing, may not allow us to 100% constitute some of these films as Black films. Quentin Tarantino, right? White male, directed a couple of films that center around the Black experience, which not recently, the one that's kind of seen a lot was Django Unchained with Jamie Foxx and Kerry Washington, right? Central is a story of enslavement and liberation, right? But we have a white director at the seat. Has anyone seen these two films? American Son. Raise your hand if you've seen American Son. Yes. Okay, American Son, yes. Okay, and then raise your hand if you've seen Fatal Affair. Fatal Affair? Or you can say yes in the chat, yeah. Okay, so most of you have seen either one of these. Which one is directed by a white director?
Isn't American Son based on it was a Broadway film written by a white woman?
White male, I believe.
White male.
Yes. And then Fatal Affair? Yeah, this is kind of two recent, I guess, Netflix produced films. Fatal Affair, Black director, white director. You can Google if you have to. Gotta be American Son. Fatal Affair, white. Fatal Affair, going once, white. Okay, Hannah said white. Hannah, you said white? Okay, white. Yeah, so both of these films are in creation, created by white directors, and director controls what's written, who's selected, what you look at, and how things come together. And with American Son, American Son it's a good film. I did like it, but the way in which the ending and the way in which the dialogue goes, I question myself, who chose this direction? When I looked, it was a white director, right? So we have a white male looking upon an interracial couple, and particularly a Black woman struggle with the loss of her son, or her son going missing, right? And Fatal Affair, we see a Black woman who's married and this Black male who's somewhat harassing her, right? And I was like, and Netflix put a lot of promo and everyone going to see Fatal Affair. So I think it's gonna be something different, right? But no, same stereotypical lines. The Black woman is somewhat considered a harlot, right? Kind of cheats on her husband a bit. Then we have a deranged, angry Black man who's trying to kill her, right? And does this make these films bad? No, it just makes them questionably different in how we're looking at the Black experience, right? And when the question becomes, what do you want us to remember, right? We see the evolving stereotypes that continue to come up. It doesn't shed light, expand, or help us better understand the Black experience from a stereotypical point of view, right? So I was disappointed when I saw Fatal Affair and then the ending of American Son, right? To know that her son had been murdered by a cop was very, very hurtful. I'm sorry if you haven't seen it, that's the ending, but I was questionable as far as why would you allow that to happen. But again, the director decides, in some cases based on a screenplay, what and how this story goes. So Teray talks about, again, in the text, the role of these white directors, right? And particularly in this industry, these white directors and many of these directors have access, right? So we have Black stories, we have Black actors, but what we don't have many times is access. So we see white directors given the space to tell these Black stories without giving space, without pushing or encouraging Hollywood to give space to Black directors, right? So it's not that we don't have Black directors, right? We do, right? But many times access and opportunity is given to these white directors to just tell Black stories, right? So Ava DuVernay, Spike Lee, Steve McQueen, these are Black directors who have done major films, but the idea of directors and them giving access is very small. You may be asking yourself, what does it matter? White directors, Black directors, it'll make a difference, right? And in this case, I want to encourage you to think about again, what's at stake, right? And the question is, how do you see Black people, right? And how you're able to understand the Black experience does matter, even with the camera, right? So this is an example. Many of you, can someone tell me what shows or movies these are from? What clips? What these pictures? What do they come from? Us.
The first one, Us. The second one is from Homecoming. And then
the last one is the episode of. The last one's episode of. So you got Us, Beyonce, Homecoming, and then the last one is the episode. It's not a movie. It's a TV show.
Oh, This Is Us.
This Is Us. Right? So you go to Us, Homecoming, This Is Us. So in these three things, you see Howard, right? And again, going back to what Africana Studies is, for you to be able to truly understand the Black experience, to understand the culture, right? And directors sit at the seat of, you pick everything down to the creative director of a film. So, and we look at this when we get to Black Panther, Ruth Carter, who went to Hampton, she's the one who dressed everyone, right? She wanted to decide, what they're wearing for what scenes. And this scene of Us and him wearing a Howard hoodie, the hoodie may have been $25, but the hoodie itself changed the culture of the film because it pulled in a people with the memory of HBCUs, and if you went to Howard, just Howard, period, right? And a director with understanding of with the understanding of a Black experience wouldn't miss that, or would add that to elevate the film, right? Beyonce could have wore a plain hoodie. She could have wore her own brand, but she chose to wear a Howard hoodie, right? And that pulled people in, right? Because the culture is tied to this hoodie and this name, right? And in the episode of This Is Us, he could have went to any college, right? But I forgot her name, Kelechi Susan Watson, who's his, I guess his wife in the show, but it's his mother, the mother in the show, TV show. She went to Howard, right? And she pushes us to add HBCU to a conversation of college experiences, right? And you would be surprised. I've been to Ghana like 5 times. It wasn't until I went to Ghana after this episode aired that people in Ghana were like, wow, I didn't know that Howard was really a Black HBCU, because across the globe, they hear of Howard, but to see Howard on TV, and then This Is Us, is aired on Netflix after it's aired on broadcast TV, people in other countries can watch it. It brought people to understand, like, wow, Howard is a Black space. We had D9, in the episode, he's part of Omega Psi Phi. So I think he is. And you see him walking on campus, and people are just blown away, like, wow, that's Howard. But a director, right, even capturing a shot of founders in the background, it changes the episode, right? So how you see Black people, how you understand what draws Black people in, what is at the core of our experiences, that's what a director catches, right? Quick question, how do you get on the place where you can get, how do you get to a place where you can be a director? Most directors start with just creating films, and then you build up. And we look at Ron Coogler. Do you have to play other behind the scenes roles before getting to? Yes, they do. They do say for you to be a great director, you need to understand all elements of a film, right? The script, casting, film, how to shoot a camera, how to hold a camera. If I was on campus and I had to capture the yard, right? If I just had a eye level view, I'll miss everything. The best angles of the yard is up above or down below with the founders in the background, right? So that's you understanding angles, right? So director captures all that, right? And that's important. So good question. So then we go to Black Panther, and back to Chadwick Boseman and him working with Ryan Coogler, who was the director, producer. He's a director, producer, and screenwriter. He's only 34. right? And how old was Chadwick Boseman? You know how old when he passed? He was 43. Yeah, so this man was younger than him, right? And he's younger than many of the actors in this film, right? Angela Bassett, he's younger than all of them, but he's able to direct a film which historically, let's say Marvel and Black Panther, they're not Black creations. Who created the Marvel character Black Panther? You wanna know?
Stan Lee.
Yes. So two white males created this character of Black Panther within the Marvel universe, right? So the idea of what Black Panther is, who he is, where he comes from, all that is driven by Marvel, which is a industry, so a comic industry, right? And then Coogler is given this script, right, this storyline, and he makes it something else, right? So he takes these people, these regular people, and he adds people, place, and culture, right? And that's what makes Black Panther so beautiful, even though it came from two white men's minds, right? This idea of this character that lives in this fictive place called Wakanda. And you could have picked a real African country, but they picked Wakanda. Coogler still was able to give the characters culture. The language they spoke in the film are in Xhosa, South African languages. The attire they wore, Ruth Carter becomes the woman who went to Hampton, and she ends up winning an Oscar for designing the set, what they're wearing. So they look somewhat African, right? They're speaking African languages. Their engagement, their language, right? It seems authentic, and we're centered in this fictive world created out of two white men's minds, but Ryan Coogler is able to create this Black experience for us, right? So when Chadwick Boseman comes to Howard, right, and he throws this symbol up, people are really drawn in from a film, right? But the film was put together by a Black director. These Black actors add language, they add culture, they add movement, they add pride to it that makes it something else, right? And at the end of the day, right, we see today when at the loss of Chadwick Boseman, even kids are feeling the loss of it, right? So Black Panther as a film that started through Marvel has become more than that. For children, it's a loss, right? Because of what it stood for, what it represented, and what it allowed Black people to envision, right? And all that came from a team that was put together by a director. And I wanted to read some of Ryan Coogler's tribute to Boseman. It's a little bit long, but he talks about when he saw Chadwick Boseman before he agreed to the project. You know, he had saw him and he saw his passion, his understanding of Black culture. Chadwick Boseman had gone to Africa a couple of times. He had learned the African language, right? He went to Howard. He understood a Black, not just a Black experience, but a diverse Black experience. Kind of like Ta-Nehisi Coates, you know, Howard is the world in one space. So you see Black people from all walks of life in this one space, and you're kind of pulled in to know more about Blackness and it's just not being monolithic, right? And that's what drew him to kind of allow Chadwick Boseman to lead this team in creating this film, right? But he understood Black culture. Chadwick Boseman understood the depths of Black culture. He understood the symbolism that a people without without a pride, a people without a color, a people without a flag, was a ununited people, somewhat of what Marcus Garvey brought to the UNIA, right? Marcus Garvey gave Black people the red, black, and green flag, right? He gave Black people pride, right? And that kind of boiled over into a movement that allowed us to go back to Africa. That's what Chadwick Boseman saw and felt that Black Panther can do for Black people, right? Outside of the Marvel conversation, right? It was a moment to bring people into this understanding of unity and pride, right? And the children even remember that, right? And this all ties to, and I'm gonna stop lecturing in a while. Again, the director, the white lens, and in literature, they say the white gaze, So does it matter if you have a black or white director? Yes, it does, because it depends on how that person sees black people, right? Taraji P. Henson talks about her playing this character in this film. Anyone know what this film is from? In her autobiography, in the bottom right corner. Baby Boy. Yeah, she plays the, let's say, lack of terms, the Ratchet, Baby Mama, and Baby Boy, right? And she talks about John Singleton, right, capturing her character, right? And in short, you will say she's a ratchet black woman, uneducated, sassy, angry. But what she wanted to do was explain what all that meant, to give depth to this black woman, right? And it may have seemed or come off ratchet from the surface, right? But the way in which John Singleton captured her character, allowed her to explain herself as a character, gave her depth, right? And you may see the same thing with her, Cookie, on the surface, right? Generally, you may think she's a ratchet person too. In many films, people may say Taraji plays some ratchet people, right? And even Tyler Perry, I can do it myself. But in the character that she's played with these black women who resemble regular black women many times in many spaces, right? What she does with these characters is she gives them depth, right? And these black directors, they give her more than 2 minutes to explain herself and her character. So when she's, for example, mad at Jodie for cheating, she explains why she's mad, right? And a black director helps her do that because she understands that black women are many times stereotyped as just being angry. But in the film, she explains her anger and you understand why she's angry, right? Cookie, as a black mother who went to prison, you see that Lee Daniels gives her space in the TV show to explain that she went to prison because she wanted better for her children. It's either her or Lucius. So she's not really seen as just a criminal. She's seen as someone who sacrificed for her family or was put in a bad situation, right? She loved her kids, right? Her anger, her anger isn't anger, it's really passion, right? For her kids to be well, right? And interestingly, she says in her autobiography that this film that was by Tyler Perry, and we can talk about Tyler Perry later, her working on this project with Tyler Perry allowed her to gain the salary she was supposed to get comparable to other white women. So in other films, Taraji wasn't getting equal to her white female counterparts. But when Tyler Perry hired her for this project as a director, he paid her what other white women were getting. And after that project, she was able to negotiate for a higher pay, right? So we see a black director understanding how valuable actors are and how much pay is an issue, right? Tyler Perry was able to change the pay gap situation for many black actors, right? He's able and still able to create many opportunities for actors, right, who were not given opportunities because of his studio, because of his platform, right? Tyler Perry, we can criticize him, but he does do a lot as pertains to wage, opportunity, and access as a black director, right? Because he chooses who he wants to capture in his film. So Teray talks about the white lens. The white lens does matter. How white people look at us through a film lens does matter. In literature, they say gaze. How people are writing about us in these early scripts do matter. So are you looking at Cookie as a ratchet black woman, or are you looking at her as a woman who is struggling to make an opportunity and access for her children? That does change a film. In The Help, these black women are seen as helpless black women, right, who are compromising to make ends meet, and at the end are left unemployed, right? But there's a story of black women being resilient and just not a few of them being resistant, but many of them being resistant during this time period that can be different from the lens we see in that film. Then I want to close out with this is a longer article in The Guardian that talks about Toni Morrison, the graduate of Howard, who in her writing, she talks about the white gaze, right? it's a process of always juggling how white people view us, for us to be able to view ourselves in a different way, to be able to write authentic Black stories, right? And I'll put the link on Blackboard for that. But Toni Morrison was always trying to avoid the white gaze, always trying to not think about how white people view us, but how we view ourselves. And then she writes from there, right? But which is very challenging, depending on how much access you have, how much power, and how much space. Okay, so that's all I want to say as far as directors and the points. You should always look at who directed a film. So on your critique form for your films, I think the third question is, who directed the film, right? Whose lens are you watching the film through? And I hope you're able to ask yourself, does that matter that this person may or may not be a Black woman, may or may not be a Black male, may or may not be a Black teen, right? For Homecoming, I believe it's Beyonce and a white male who directs Homecoming, right? But she is at the primary director seat in Homecoming, and we see that come through in her own work, right? But let me know, what are some of your favorite Black films? Type in the chat, or you can say it aloud. What are some of your favorite Black films? And have you checked to see if the directors are Black? Dreamgirls, The City of God, Malcolm X, and Spike Lee Players Club, Belly, okay. Baps, okay. Us, okay. Black Panther and Guava Island, The Wood, that's a good one. Malcolm X, okay. Paid in Full, Cadillac Records, oh wow. That's really good, I like that. Roll Bounce, okay. Juice, okay. Love Jones, good. Interesting, Love Jones. Raise your hand if you saw The Photograph. The Photograph, is it Photograph with Issa Rae? I think it was. Raise your hand if you saw The Photograph. Supposed to be the follow-up to but not follow-up in that conversation, Black Love. I liked it, yes, that was really good. Okay, we'll talk about that when we get to romance films. Love and Basketball, classic. Yep. Friday, okay, comedy, interesting. When we get to comedy, we'll talk about what's everybody laughing at. All of them, all the Fridays, okay. 2 more films, favorite films. Girls Trip, wow, Girls Trip, good, Black man. It's interesting, so we have Girls Trip, but the director's a Black man, right, interesting. And he puts together these Black women. Poetic Justice, good one. Django, okay. Django definitely is a white director. I like to compare Django to 12 Years a Slave. Coach Carter, good one. Set Off, good one. Dope, gotta say Boys in the Hood, go John Singleton. Rest in peace, John Singleton. John Singleton have done some great films. 2 more, I think that's it. Is that everybody? Favorite film? Queen and Slim. I still have not seen Queen and Slim. I don't know why. I need to go watch that before. High Learning. High Learning is a good one.
Well, I have not seen that either. It's on HBO.
I mean, yeah, it is. I feel like I'm fearful that it's gonna be the same old stereotypes, even though people are saying it's not. But the Bonnie and Clyde stereotype, I feel like is not a authentic Black stereotype. So I know people are saying it's like the Black Bonnie and Clyde. I'm like, that's the wrong answer, because I'm just not for Bonnie and Clyde stereotype. But again, I'll definitely watch it when we get to action films. And I think it's like slash romance a bit too. Luke Cage, okay, The Best Man, both of them. Oh, The Best Man is good. Fresh. I don't think I've seen Fresh. Straight Outta Compton. Okay, interesting. Straight Outta Compton. Again, when we critique films that are based on real life, we kind of skew a little bit of the criticism, right? Because if this really happened in someone's life, which is, I know Straight Outta Compton was very tough, right? How they dealt with the role of Black women. We don't judge as harshly as we would critique a script that is somewhat fictive. Moonlight's very good. Beverly Hills Cops. Queen and Slim had the potential to be great, but a couple of things really butchered the point they were trying to make. Interesting. Coming to America comedy. All right. So you guys have definitely a mixed sense of genres. for your first film. So I'm interested to see what you guys submit for Friday House Party. Wow, that's a throwback. And for those who are choosing comedy, the question I want you to ask is, what are you laughing at, right? And who's creating it? So if we see some comedies where Black people are central in the film, but you have white directors, the question is like, what are they laughing at, right? And sometimes Black people's experiences become the brunt of white America's entertainment, right? So think about that for comedy. For those who your favorite film is love or romance, is Black love seen as something that is abnormal or hard to come at, right? For those who are looking at action, how do you look at how are Black bodies used in these action films, right? What is a superpower, right? Think about that. For drama, what is the narrative? What storyline is it? Again, like Queen and Slim, robbing, shooting, stealing, destruction. What is the drama that is tied to the story? Set Off is a great film. I love that. I used to open that up for the action week. Coach Carter. When we talk about success in drama, is success normalized in the film, or is it just happenstance, right? Poetic Justice, again, love, also action. So I think we have a good class. I think you all seen quite a bit of movies. I'm excited to see what you submit for this first week, and then as we continue to see what you choose as we move forward in the week. Next week's topic will be romance. So I'm prepared to list your top Black romance films, and we'll talk about that and what makes a Black romance film essential. And then we'll go from there. Any questions and comments on white directors in Black films? Should they give up their seats? Should we not have any more Black films with white directors? You can type in the chat or talk. Should we not have any Black films with white directors? They should give up.
I mean, personally, I think white directors can't really relate to like Black life or Black culture. So I wouldn't say we need to get rid of them completely, but I believe if like a white director is going to make a Black film, they also need to have a strong co-director as a Black individual to assist them with that.
Okay, I agree.
I think that. Oh, sorry. I think that in a lot of cases, not even in film, like in the professional world, white people that are quote unquote for the cause, do these things and kind of look for a pat on the back or like, here's a cookie. Not saying it's ingenuine, but it's definitely like, oh, I'm the white savior. Clap for me. I'm going to make this film. And then everybody praises them.
Yeah, I agree. We do see not every Black film with Black directors has that talent, but we definitely do see that. Myra?
I think they shouldn't necessarily try to make like slave movie. Like, I don't like when white directors make slave movies or just like historic movies that Black directors should do, because there are white allies, but then again, it's like, you don't volunteer yourself to be a voice, try to be a voice for us when we didn't ask for it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. But then the question becomes access, right? If Steven Spielberg didn't agree to do Color Purple, it wouldn't have been done. But in many cases, will we have less Black films if white directors weren't volunteering, let's say, to tell our stories?
Well, to push back on that, I would just say that it would give us more space for Black people to come into the space and create their own.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And some of it is space, right? The studio that Tyler Perry built is now creating space, right? Because before him, you had to go to these white companies to use their space to create films, right? But I think Tyler Perry's now changed the game with that. But I agree, if they choose not to volunteer, maybe we can do it ourselves. Maybe we can train more people to kind of fill in these gaps, right? Amaya said, do we all think that white directors can truly can tell Black stories accurately? Okay. Is there such thing as an accurate Black story? Or are they trying to control Black narratives? Comments on this, on my statement.
I think that like an accurate Black story would be like a regular person, like just telling the story like a regular Black person's life. And like from the perspective, I was gonna say this earlier, but like a Black film would have to be, in my opinion, something that tells a story of something that only Black people like that can experience. So like if it was like slavery or police brutality or just even like with the Fatal Affair, like it could have been two white people playing that and still would have been the same movie. So it's like, to me, that doesn't count as a Black film because them being Black doesn't really add anything to the storyline. So I think if you, like, for it to be accurately Black, it has to be something that, like, is really innate to Black people, especially, or like Black people in America or Black people in general.
I agree. I think if Fatal Affair had a white cast, it wouldn't be, let's say, a Black experience. It wouldn't be a Black film. But because that can be interchangeable, does it disqualify it from being a Black film, right? If we take like Crooklyn, right? If we were to change that Black family in Harlem and make it a white family, would it work? It probably wouldn't work, right? Because Chloe getting her hair braided by her mom on a porch probably doesn't happen in white culture, right? So I definitely do argue that there are some things that are authentic to Black people, Black culture, and Black spaces, right? That people are arguably saying that we don't have enough of those stories, and to tell those stories, you have to be within it. You can't watch it from the outside and kind of reenact it for someone else, right? Taraji, in her autobiography, and we're reading this book for my Women of Mecca org. She talks about Lee Daniels and both John Singleton allowing her to make up lines, right? So the director and the screenwriter will probably write a line, right, that just says, you know, what? The line will just say what. Someone calls you, turn around, you say what. As a Black woman, she is a Black woman, and she's trying to portray the story of a hurt Black woman who's been cheated on. When she says what, she adds what with an eye roll, with the neck roll, with her body movement. She pauses, and then she moves on, right? So a director wouldn't understand how a Black woman may react in the situation because she's not a Black woman, right? And having an actor do that and give that to this character makes the film even better, right? But if you just want her to kind of go based on your script, you lose the authenticity of what that Black experience of a woman is who is single, trying to be committed in an uncommitted relationship, right? And the things that she brings to that. So great point. There are authentic Black stories that you cannot interchange race, class, gender, or location, right? Anyone else? Comments on, should we tell all white directors to sit down?
I would say no, not entirely. Just because like that's just like another perspective on certain things, especially if they're not trying to convey something that isn't like making it a Black experience when they can't necessarily portray it. But yeah, not in its entirety.
Okay, she said we should keep some of them. So we should keep some white directors, but not all of them. Hello?
Yeah, they should
Okay.
never be the majority, or it's in a perspective of who it's written for and what they're trying to say to an audience. So
Okay.
like slave films and all that, of course, I feel like they shouldn't necessarily be making slave films for Black Americans type of thing.
That's good. How do you guys feel about, for example, Star Wars, where we see, let's say, films, white films, correct, with white directors, but they're adding Black actors for diversity? Or we say tokenism in the industry. What do you think does that help Black Hollywood?
I feel like it depends on the representation that token Black person is getting within the movie. I feel like if they're portraying them to be some stereotypical black person, like, like, oh, the man's the thug or a gangster, the woman is bitter and she's a baby mama with 3 kids, low income. Like, I don't like those kind of movies. Like, if you're going to have that one token black person, make sure that what they're representing is not what you feel or what you feel represents black culture or black people as a whole.
But what if that's the only, again, so if white people only see, let's say, black men as brute thugs, let's say, and black women as sassy Jezebels, right? And that's the only spot in the script, what do you do? Right, and there's been many films where we've seen the most, not the one of the most, but Oscar-winning one is Monster Ball, right? Halle Berry, Monster Ball. She's a black woman who is somewhat sexualized, and so we have a whole sex scene on TV with this old white man, right? And she gets an Oscar for it, right? But she's also awarded for great acting, right? Should she have turned down that role, right, as a black woman? It kind of opens up her career for other things. Yep, they have Holly and Denzel. So Denzel on Training Day, black man is angry, abusive, drug selling police officer, and they both get Oscars. Should they have turned those things down?
I would say I don't think they should have turned it down because, like I was saying earlier about like the experience of black people, like I don't think they would really be token black people, more so as just black people who happen to have like this type of personality or they play this character. Like a token black person, to me at least, like in TVs and movies, would be that like you can always tell when somebody was put there for like quote unquote diversity. But I feel like in those instances, like in Training Day, Denzel as a main character, even playing the type of character that he was, in my head, like that wasn't them trying to make him a token black person. It was more just like he's playing this character, but he also happens to be black. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're going back to conversation as far as authentic black stories, right? So if Denzel wasn't Denzel and they had, I don't know, Mario Lopez play the cop, it would still work, right? Or if they had, I don't know, Leonardo DiCaprio play the cop, it would still work, right? So there's no authentic story in Training Day, right, to the black experience. They just happen to put this main central black character in this experience in the film, and many of the stereotypes are negative, right? The question is, does it help, right? It opened doors after that for Denzel more, but the question is, does it help? And Halle Berry, particularly with Monster Ball, right, in her role, does it help? And if you change Halle Berry and put, I don't know, Emma, that can't know her last name, does the film still work? Yes, it does. So the film itself isn't authentically black to a black experience, right? It just happens to have a black woman in it. So we're not arguing that in no case. But do these, for example, films help or hurt with directors adding these black characters as central characters in these films?
In terms of Moneyball with Halle Berry, I remember in another class that we were discussing, I think it was Dr. Harrell's one of his psychology classes, but he was explaining how if she hadn't necessarily had that sex scene with the white man in the movie, would she have still been given that Oscar type thing? So I guess my plight is like, if they were still going to receive the same accolades that they would have playing that exact same role, then it's different. But if you had to change the movie in any way where that scene might not have happened, like that iconic scene, would she still have been awarded for her part in the movie?
That's a good question. And if you remember Monster Ball, her character is a single black mom who's struggling. And she kind of meets this white man who's also struggling in his personal life. And they have this sexual encounter, kind of, in short. There's some race and politics in there too. And for Denzel, he's a bad, angry boss cop, right? In both of these acting positions, are their lives complex? Do they evolve? Do we understand their backstory? and their sense of where they came from, how they get there, and what does the film help us remember outside of what they did, which is a sex scene from mainly the sex scene from Halle Berry's film, and then from Denzel. I think his most favorite part is, that when he gets angry, talking about Plymouth Rock, then lands it on da-da-da, land on Plymouth Rock, and he's like the boss man. So what do these films help us remember anything about Black people? What contributions do these films create? And I want just to pose that, which is like, let's say a film that got a lot of criticism, not too much, but if you remember Precious, young Black girl who's raped by her father, low income, New York, abused. She's dealing with her weight. She's dealing with issues around literacy, retention. She gets pregnant a couple times. There's social workers, are trying to help her. Like, that's a clear that's a struggle story, right? Let's say it's around a Black child, a Black woman, and a Black family in a Black space called New York, right? Could you change that out with race? You probably couldn't, because some of the things are so unique, right? And that, let's say, wasn't our best light. But from that film, what do you think comes out of that, the character that Gabrielle Sidibe plays and Monique plays, right? Because Monique also gets nominated for an Oscar in Precious. Different from Halle Berry and Denzel. If anybody remembers Precious, you're gonna play quick with Precious. Not today though, but do you remember walking away from Precious like, I didn't know that, or I didn't feel that, or wow? Raise your hand or just leave a comment. What did you walk away from after watching Precious? With, I should say. Raise your hand if you saw Precious. Raise your hand, anybody saw Precious? Okay, Hannah got a hand up. Only 2 people? 3? 4? Okay. For the 5 of you who saw Precious, did you walk away? What did you walk away from the film from? Okay, a couple people saw Precious.
I mean, because the thing about the film Precious, like, that is life for, like, some African Americans. That's what we go through. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, wow, like, for that to be told in that way was kind of like, but then again, you also think, how would our white counterparts take it? They'll try to flip it, I think.
Which is, it's like airing your dirty laundry on public, right? So let's say that's what Lee Daniels does. Like, he airs out some of the grittiest parts of the Black experience for people who are living in the cities to, let's say, all of America or the world, right? Which is a kind of a separate question of audience, right? Who's he writing to? Precious is very triggering, I agree. Very heavy truth, right? But what you gather is there is a truth in it. There's an authentic sense of what is going on. Monique as a single mom and Halle Berry as a single mom, the depth in character is just different. Like, you really understand, even though Monique could say wrong, you understand why she's wrong, right? The monologue where she gives to Mariah Carey in The Office, where she says she's doing to her daughter what her mother and her father did to her, right? And that's like, kind of opens up the sense of, man, you're broken too, right? And Halle Berry doesn't touch anything of depth as a Black woman in Monster Ball that Monique does in Precious, right? And I think Monique didn't win. I think she did win, I'm sorry. But you see those 2 films, Black directors, Halle Berry, again, she's center in this class, the center of Monster Ball, and Precious, Gaddy Sidibe and Monique are the center in Precious, and they're both, let's say, sad stories, but the depth and understanding, the truth you get in Precious is just layered, right? Layered. And what we get in Monster Ball doesn't even touch it, right? And that's what a director does. It gives people space to really experience the Black experience, the beautiful, the complex, the untold, and it puts that in motion picture, right? So Lee Daniels has a few major projects, but I'm sure Lee Daniels compared to the check that Lee Daniels got compared to the check that the creator of Monster Ball got are probably like night and day, right? What Lena, I can't remember her last name, the writer of The Chi, what she's doing in that show is phenomenal to the Black experience, right? And it's similar to somewhat similar to The Wire, but the amount of humanity she brings to Black people lives in that storytelling is phenomenal, right? And she's a Black woman. I'm sure the pay she gets, even within Showtime, HBO, is nothing compared to what other people who are directors are getting, right? And she's doing multiple things, right? So Black directors do matter. Understanding the lens and gaze people are using to look at us does matter. You can be a great actor, right? And Taraji, when she, after these projects, or before these projects and after, she ended up doing Benjamin Button, right? So you go from Baby Boy to Benjamin Button, right? That shows you that Taraji is a great actor, right? But sometimes she didn't win the Oscar, supporting Oscar for Benjamin Button, right? But she's gone on to do many other things, right? But depending on who's directing her and who's giving her space to show her talent, that shows you how much she's grown as an actor, right? So directors do matter. Who's directing the film doesn't matter. I want you all to think about when you watch a film. There's a new film coming out on the Black Panther Party. See who the director is, right? When Queen and Slim first was promoted, right? They were making sure that people knew that these directors were new directors. These directors were Black women, right? So a different perspective, different angle, right? Because that's supposed to matter in how you're able to receive and understand the film, right? So I'll stop there. We'll continue next week with our first major genre, romance and Black love. We'll talk about that. And some of our, even when you think about some of our favorite Black love films, think about who's directing these films, right? I was heartbroken to know that Girlfriends wasn't directed, well, no, Girlfriends was partly directed by a Black woman. But think about who's at the seat of these projects and how they're directing these projects. If you have not signed in for attendance, please do so. It will be up until Friday. One quick thing, so the videos are posted for the classes, will be posted in the classes by Friday. So if you go to course content from last week, you'll see the link to the video from last week right there. And the same will follow every week after that in the corresponding folders. If there's any more questions, have a great week, and I'll see you all next week, Tuesday. Again, we only meet weekly, next week, Tuesday. So you're gonna spend this Thursday watching your favorite Black film and completing the film critique and uploading on social media posts and to change this. Yeah. All right, have a great weekend. I'll see you on next Tuesday.
Bye.
Bye. See ya.
All right, have a good day.
You too.